Right, good morning everybody. Thank you so much for joining Amy and I this morning to talk about a very relevant subject, which is effective virtual onboarding. As we know, the start of the lockdown on the 23rd of March meant that life for all of us changed dramatically, both personally and professionally. What became very apparent very quickly is that the world of recruiting and onboarding was going to have to be very different. And whilst we have to be very mindful of the fact that there are many businesses that are not recruiting and in very challenging times, we have got clients who are recruiting and have asked for support on how do we do effective recruitment and effective virtual onboarding. We've worked with Amy we've worked with Adobe for probably about 7 years. Amy and I actually only got introduced a couple of weeks ago. Because I noticed that Amy had put a post out about the fact that she was onboarding 42. Is that right, Amy?
That's correct, yes.
42 new starters, I think it was the beginning of April. And I thought, wow, you know, how are you going to do that? And how does that work? So I set about a project. So Amy's been with, Amy, do you want to just give a bit of background about yourself?
Yes, of course. Thanks, Nikki. So good morning, everybody. So as you know, my name is Amy Wells and I'm the onboarding specialist for EMEA for Adobe in Maidenhead, which is where I'm based. I've been with the business just over 4 years and I started with Adobe as an executive assistant in our C&B business. And then in December 2018, moved across to this new onboarding specialist role that was newly created within Adobe. And I cover EMEA, but I'm part of a global team. So I have colleagues in other locations around the globe, and we all work together with regards to the entire onboarding process for all of our new hires that come into the business.
Okay, so thank you for that. You are able to ask questions. You'll see a chat box I think it's on your right, and you can ask questions as we go through this. And then at the end, we will talk about those questions. We've also got a poll on there as well, which is just, you know, a couple of questions we're asking you in terms of have you done virtual onboarding before? And sorry, I just realised that we haven't actually launched that. Have you done virtual onboarding before? And has oh, I've done something there. Lost you then, Amy. I pressed the wrong button. Maybe I'll leave Karen to do that. Karen, I'll let you do that. So let's just go through and talk about virtual induction. So prior to the lockdown, Amy, has Adobe been involved in virtual onboarding?
Yes, we have. So our day one, day two structure is that day one was a VC driven onboarding. So I'd have people in the room in Maidenhead or London, depending on where I was delivering, and then we'd be connected by VC across multiple locations. So we have about 23 locations across EMEA that we can potentially connect to, depending on where those hires come from. And then on day two, we leverage Adobe Connect. So that's a more regional orientated virtual onboarding session. With questions, interactivities, different polls like you just mentioned here in this webinar, just to drive that interactivity and engagement. So we had been doing something very similar prior to kind of working from home and the general lockdown.
So in terms of the induction onboarding process, you said you've been in this role, did you say 6 to 18 months? And yes. You were on onboarding role. Yeah. So did that role exist prior? Was this a new role created, or? So
it was a new role created. So prior to this onboarding role, Adobe were finding that we were having some challenges around provisioning of equipment, badging for security to get into offices. Although we had an end-to-end process mapped out and we were very clear what that looked like, it was a bit just disjointed, and different departments were managing or owning different parts of the process, and it wasn't connected. So part of this new role was to change that and to connect the process so it was more fluid. And I myself, a lot of what I do is connecting with those other teams, provisioning teams, whether it be laptops, phones, facilities, just to make sure that there's a more connected process in the back end to improve the employee experience when they come on board to us.
And one of the things that we noticed as a recruiting for you is that you changed your way of induction in terms of there were 2 induction days per month. Is that right?
No, we've actually changed to one per month. So we were in a
Okay.
position where we had prior to me taking this role, we had multiple people coming into the business on different days of the week, different weeks of the month, and there wasn't the continuity and connectivity needed to bring everybody in together and drive you know, a good employee journey. So we took the decision as a business in May, June of last year to standardise our hire date. And in doing so, it's allowed us to really drive some great structure and framework around the whole onboarding process.
And have you had any challenges with that in terms of, you know, obviously notice periods or being, I assume that if your onboarding process was, say, the first of the month and then you got off, you would then potentially be 8 weeks or so before you'd actually, if you had a month's notice, you might have to wait 8 weeks to actually start.
Yeah, I mean, we have had some challenges. There were some teething problems with that, but we've worked through that and it's working for us really, really well. And what we're finding is that people that are interviewing us tend to really want to work for Adobe. So they work with us to work out what they need to do to get with us on the right, come and join us on the right date. So it's working really well.
I think I said to you when we spoke last week that we obviously were told about this and we didn't realise the reason. It wasn't sort of suggest. And now you've told us that, it totally makes sense. And I think you could actually sell that to a candidate in terms of the benefit of joining on a day when there's other people joining as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's worked really, really well in terms of networking. So you're networking your first days and weeks and connecting people as well. It's worked really, really well.
So in terms of since lockdown, have you made any changes to how you're going to do your onboarding, or is the virtual onboarding process so sort of comprehensive you've not had to make any changes to it?
No, we've had to make a lot of changes. So I needed to do a bit of a pivot when we were told that we needed to work from home and we wouldn't be allowed to go into the office. So there's been a lot of increased communication with stakeholders and provisioning teams. We're very, very close. We're very, very connected in terms of communication. I've got a network of what I call Adobe ambassadors across EMEA that help and support me in location because I can't be everywhere at once. So we're working very closely. All equipment, so laptops and phones, are being shipped directly to the employees' home addresses as well. So I'm working very closely with our IT client services for our new hires to make sure that laptops are shipped in a timely manner and ready for day one. And then we're having kind of regular check-ins with managers just to make sure they're aware of what's happening and where we are in the process. And then there are regular kind of town halls and company meetings that we're connecting with as well, just to make sure that the communication is out there and our business know what we're doing and how we're moving towards that start date.
And we're a month into this now, so is it the people who you onboarded in beginning of April, how have they sort of integrated into the organisation?
So the pulse check on that is quite good. So, you know, I appreciate that there isn't that face-to-face connection, and that's how we kind of build those relationships. However, we're leveraging things like Slack. We've got like new hire groups where we connect the new hires. There's all sorts of different communications. There's regular check-ins with their hiring managers. There's a lot of also, we've got a buddying system. So we have an Adobe guide system. So every new hire that comes into the business will be assigned a buddy or guide. And that will be the person that will work with them and sit with them through their onboarding journey, which has helped a lot. People have really appreciated that. So it's working well.
I've heard about the buddy bit from a number of companies that I've been talking to. And I think you're aware that it's been a bit of a project of mine to learn about this. And I think the buddy system is something that's been a lot of people have actually put into their organisations. So in terms of the induction onboarding process, if we sort of take an example of someone joining, who would be involved in their induction and onboarding process then?
Well, obviously, from my perspective, I drive the process back end and I deliver those the 2 days training sessions, but we've got multiple stakeholders throughout the business. So all of our managers, the different leaders, we've all got a role to play because obviously onboarding is really critical to any businesses, more so at the moment than ever. So it's everybody really. Provisioning teams, obviously, in terms of laptop and equipment as well, is quite key.
So in terms of what would you say could be a potential pitfall for virtual induction?
I think the main challenge is ensuring that people's equipment arrives on time so that they've got that. But what we have created is a way that the new hires can actually log on to our systems and attend that induction from their own desktop or laptop at home if their equipment doesn't arrive. So we've got a contingency plan and a backup plan if things don't arrive on time.
You're planning for it not necessarily to all work. So
yes.
I forgot to mention, didn't I, about the technology challenge we had this morning, that your computer wasn't particularly playing ball. So
no. Hence the fact that it's a little dark this morning here. It's normally more well lit, and I don't think it helps the fact that I've got a really big dark rain cloud above me and it's raining really heavily outside as well. So my apologies for the lighting.
I think that's one of the other challenges, is that when this happened, we didn't get any warning, did we? It was just that was it, and we have the equipment we've got, and we've got to make, we've got to be resourceful in terms of what we're doing. So in terms of accountability and trust, then, so you've got this accountability and trust in terms of people being probably potentially now being recruited virtually. And how does Adobe manage that in terms of getting that instilled in new employees?
I think that's a lot to do with our culture in general. We're very much a people-orientated culture, and it's driven a lot by our core values of being genuine, exceptional, innovative, and involved. And it drives an accountable and a trustworthy culture with those around us. We also have something called the Adobe capabilities as well, which is around being creative, being focused, and being a leader. So it empowers our employees to kind of really lean in and get involved. And everyone that works for Adobe is so passionate about their Adobe family, and they want to do their best, especially with such difficult times at the moment. So that trust is there, and we're being supported from our CEO, Shantanu Down, and they're also very focused on well-being and working from home virtually. So it's the culture in general, I would say, that drives that trust.
So just picking up, I know slightly off piece, but the well-being piece, what is the business doing in terms of well-being?
So we've got a lot of activity happening. So all of our employees globally have free access to Headspace. I don't know whether you've heard that, but it's a guided meditation tool. We've just launched something called Life Dojo, which is again another app that you can use, whether it's personal training, whether it's guided meditation, whether it's healthy eating plans and fitness. So we're using those two tools. As well as that, we're doing weekly yoga sessions. So twice a week, we've got different yoga sessions that you can do virtually, and different teams are logging in to do those. So we've got a lot of tools that we can use. We have a wellness fund, a wellness reimbursement fund as well, that we can use and leverage. So if anyone's starting any kind of sports clubs or anything virtually, there's an expense process around that. And then we also have our working from home funds that Adobe launched when we went live with working from home, whereby people can utilize that fund to set up their office equipment correctly. So for instance, for me, sitting in my dining room here at home, I now have a monitor, a chair, I've got a printer, and I've been able to do that just through the working from home fund that they've launched. So we're really supported.
I think you might have told me you stole your chair, didn't you?
Yes, I did take my chair from work. But security and everybody, security and everybody were made aware as I was wheeling it out and throwing it in the back of my car, so we're good with that.
One of the things that, and I know the client's actually, I think she's on the call, and I won't say the company, but this is really lovely, is that they are using the fund, the money that they would have been spending on travelling as an organisation, they're actually giving it to charities, which I just think is what a phenomenal thing to do in this climate. So how are you going to handle reviews then? How will the ongoing reviews work?
I mean, that's business as usual. There's no reason that should change because of that trust culture that we have. And we all have individual commitments that span all sorts of different meeting targets related to our day-to-day roles. So you know, we've got regular check-ins with managers, teams are meeting, and we've got options of all sorts of different virtual training opportunities, LinkedIn Learning, Harvard Managed Mentor. We're using Get Abstract as well. That's just some of the tools that we can use. So, and we have an education reimbursement fund as well. So if we're seeing anything that needs improvement, they can use that for short-term and long-term education as well.
But it very much sounds to me that the business has been operating very much in a virtual way for quite some time. So the adjustment for you guys from, you know, the beginning of March to the 24th of March, whenever it was, has been quite easy, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. We changed our online supplier last year, and we moved across to something called Blue Jeans. I don't know whether anybody's heard of that before. And we use Blue Jeans to deliver our orientation day one as well. And what we found is my diary day to day anyway, my meetings would be virtual with my colleagues across EMEA. So we were already used to that kind of environment. I think the only thing that I would say is, since working from home, there's been a definite uplift in the amount of and the volume of meetings that we're having, and they're all being driven virtually. But as a business in general, we were kind of already there really, and speaking a lot on a virtual level.
And you told me about Blue Jeans, didn't you? That you can it can put your makeup on automatically, so you don't have to put it on.
Got filters.
Yeah,
which is quite nice to plug into that.
We both had to do our makeup this morning, didn't we? So in terms of how do you introduce new starters into the business with the relevant stakeholders? How does that happen?
In what way? So do you mean on day one when we're training them, or
not necessarily day one, but and obviously they're not going to be meeting all the senior stakeholders, but all stakeholders, but their key stakeholders, are they part of the 2-day onboarding process, or is that meetings that are set up further down the line?
So what we have is what we call an integration plan. So every person hiring somebody into the business has to develop that integration plan for that individual. So it's a clear layout of what the first kind of couple of days, weeks, up to about 4 or 6 weeks, depending on how detailed that needs to be. And in that integration plan is an outline of all the key stakeholders for that role or for that person in the business, and also wider people that they need to connect with as well. So there are different meetings that they connect with, and then they get overviews about some of the social impact initiatives that we're doing, where we're giving back and doing volunteering. So some of those virtual events we share with them as well, so they can get involved and widen their networks that way as well. So there's always a very clear structure and plan for anyone coming into the business.
Sounds like it's a big exercise to do it, but I assume that it's, you know, you've got a template now and it's quite smooth in terms of how it works.
Yeah, it's really easy and straightforward to fill in that template. Everybody uses the same template as well, although we have a difference between like an individual contributor and a manager. They're the two roles that we have the templates for. But hiring managers, the expectation is there. You know, we're very clear about what's expected, and the accountability is there as well. So they just get themselves organised and plan for that new person coming into the business.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think there has to be the ownership from everybody, doesn't there? I mean, we had a situation, you know, we've had a recent situation, I think, where a guy was started and hadn't got the equipment, and it wasn't a great first day experience. And I think that it's very important always, but it's critical now.
Definitely more so.
Let's go back to the offer bit. So you obviously offer, and how does that? How many touch points do you have from offer to start day, and what are they?
So there's loads of different touch points. So we have a team of what we call talent coordinators, and they're the individuals that deal with the offers, the interview process, right? So pre-day one, they're a great team of people spread across EMEA, and they work with hiring managers and our talent partners through that process. Talent partners are then accountable for driving those relationships and making sure that those new hires are connected with on a regular basis. The offer process is managed through Adobe Sign, so that's all automated. So that's really easy to do and fire out contracts for those individuals, which is really, really helpful. And then the TP is in constant contact with the new hires, and the talent coordinators send out what we call a new hire pack. which has also just been moved across into Adobe Sign. And what that is that's how we collect all of their banking details, all of their personal information that we need to get them set up into our systems. And that's working really well as well. So with the use of Adobe Sign, it's really helped us in this.
There's a bit of a plug going on for Adobe Sign.
I know, a little bit, just a little bit, but it's a fantastic tool, right? So you know, I
have to be honest, we use it.
Yeah. It's and it makes that it takes away that need for a wet signature, and obviously in a virtual environment that we're now in, where we still need to work through some of these processes and where you're hiring. Yeah, it just works really well. It lends itself really well to a virtual environment.
So we talked about the check-in, the offer, etc. In terms of, and we have probably touched on the engagement piece, which is all around buddies and giving them access to different tools in the business is probably right, isn't it? That's what the engagement piece involves.
Yeah.
Is there anybody who, you know, obviously somebody's, apart from the manager, does anybody else look at whether the process is going successfully? Is it monitored in any way in the onboarding?
It's not that it's monitored. We do have some surveys that we send out. So we have like pulse check employee surveys. So for instance, on day 5, day 30 and day 90, we use a tool to send out surveys to those new hires, just to check in with them to see how they're doing, how their onboarding was certainly on day 5. And we've seen a really good improvement on that for day 5 for our April cohort. So we've seen a real increase in the favourable kind of percentage of feedback that we've received, which is fantastic and really good to know. And then I think the other call out is that Adobe Buddy that we mentioned. You know, that individual will be working very closely with the new hire, so they'll flag any concerns if there's areas that we're missing. We'll work to work out how we can solve or help with that. And people reach out to me quite regularly with questions as well. So those new hires, although I see them day 1 and 2, and we're on Slack channels and different communication tools to stay connected, people often reach out to ask more or for guidance. So, you know, it's an ongoing process.
Okay. And in terms of just working hours, have you changed any policy on that at the moment?
So that's as is really in terms of working hours. Definitely the business is calling out being connected too much. So in the beginning, I think people were logging on very early, working till late. Obviously, we're working across multiple time zones as well, because I'm part of an international business, or the international part of the business. So it's not just the EMEA time zone. There's a whole play around being mindful of how long you're connected, making sure that you get up and go out for walks or step away from your laptop. So although the core hours are still the same, we're very much encouraged to be mindful of our own well-being, and rather than sitting at home like I am at my dining room table for hours on end, I take a break in the day and I go out for a walk. Maybe not today, but do you know what I mean? Being mindful of not staring at a screen all day, every day, because I don't think that's good for your mental health and mental well-being either. So it's finding the right balance, and we're definitely encouraged to do so.
And I think that goes back to accountability and trust, doesn't it? Because yes. I know from our perspective, you know, we've got obviously all our team are working remotely, and you know, they've got 3 of them have got young children, so yeah. You know, it's just been very different in terms of how the job is done, and I think you have to be prepared to keep that flexibility. I think also there's a little bit of I need to be sitting in front of my computer in case somebody wants me. You know, we're not available 24/7 when we're in the office, so we don't have to be available to everybody who wants us, do we?
Constantly. No, absolutely. And I think that's more challenging because, because we're sat at home. Right? We're in our home environment. So it's really easy, you know, to switch off your laptop, but then you've picked your mobile phone up. So you might have gone to sit and watch something on Netflix or have dinner, but you're still connected with your mobile. So it's being conscious of that, and maybe switching them off to have some downtime, and it's okay to not be available.
Yeah, and that's quite scary. I think technology in lots of ways has actually, and if we actually think about the impact of the COVID-19, had we not got this technology, we would have been really in trouble as a United Kingdom. But this technology is giving us the ability to reach out and carry on working. But we all know that technology means that you're constantly working, potentially, 14 hours a day, aren't you? Because you're just waiting.
Definitely.
So just one other question. In terms of probation, will your probation stay the same now, or will that change because of the situation?
The probation process is really business as usual. It's not going to change in any way particularly. Individuals, it's made very clear for those individuals what the commitments are that they need to make, or what their objectives or goals are. And they're checking in regularly with their managers, and they're encouraged to ask questions and be open if something's not understood or they need more help in any particular area. We've got loads of access to loads of training tools and support. So if anyone identifies something that maybe needs a bit of work, we've got the resources to provide them, and to provide them virtually. So that's really good. And then going back to the employee having the education reimbursement fund. So we've got lots of tools and resources as a business that we can use to support anybody that's having any challenges around their probation. But it's business as usual. It's not going to change that I'm aware of at the moment.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, thank you so much. I mean, I have found this whole experience been really, really interesting. I think it'd be good to understand if anybody's got any specific questions. I know that in many organisations there isn't a one person because of the size of the organisation. But I think one of the things that I personally feel from the research that I've done is that somebody does need to own this.
Yes.
Even if the parts of it are sort of given to different, maybe HR business partners, there needs to be somebody who's owning the process, because otherwise it can break down.
Yeah, definitely. And onboarding for Adobe isn't just me, right? There is an army behind me, a village of people that help and support me in that process, because I can't do it on my own. But I'm the person that connects the dots and owns the process and drives the communication, and that's where it really, really does help.
And I think the buddy system is something else that I've heard is really powerful. The other thing that is more touch points. So any touch point you can have from that offer to them joining is really important, especially at the moment, because people are anxious and there's a lot of fear. So they might be thinking, oh well, am I going to be starting, and is this going to change? And are they
definitely.
The offer? And I think there needs to be even more communication around that. What I'd like to do is just see if any has any questions. We can allow you to speak. I think Karen would be able to do that, or you can send some questions into Amy and I, just to see if there's anything specifically that you'd like to talk about or ask Amy. She's very open to answering questions, aren't you, Amy?
Absolutely. I'd love to hear from you, actually. Yeah, absolutely. It's a subject that I love, and I'd love to know how others are doing things, and what's working, what's not, and where I can share any best practices or ideas and things that we've worked on at Adobe that could be of help.
I think it's safe to say you love your job, isn't it?
Yes, I do. Oh, we've got yeah, I do. We've got a question in from Jennifer Grange. So thank you, Jennifer. And you're asking about our wellness reimbursement fund. So as part of our benefits package at Adobe, we have the wellness reimbursement, and there's a fund. I think it's about $420, and it's converted into different currencies, obviously globally, and that's part of the wellness package that happens when they join our business. And that can be used to join gyms, join slimming clubs, if that's what you're interested in. I brought my Fitbit through that. So like training trackers, trainers, different things that you need to help you stay fit and be well. You've got that fund to use and leverage and expense against, which is a fantastic benefit, and is really, really popular at Adobe, as you can imagine.
That's great. Thank you for that. Has anybody else got any questions they'd like to ask? Or anything?
I can see Kenny's.
Go on.
Sorry, Kenny, thanks for your question. So what main thing have you changed since the launch, and what would you change? I think the main thing that's really changed from my perspective is the level of communication that's happening between stakeholders and provisioning teams, making sure that we're all on the same page, that we've all got the information that we need real time, so that we've got the full picture in terms of who our new hires are, and when we're expecting them and where we're expecting them. I think is the main thing that I would call out.
Great. Anybody else going to be brave?
We've got Nicola Nicholson has just popped a note in the chat pod. Sorry, just lost that. There we go. Thank you for arranging this webinar. Have the buddies volunteered, or an expectation from the managers will undertake this role? So Nicola, it's a combination of both really. So a manager might have identified an individual in the team that is looking for a personal development opportunity, and this could be it for them. Managers never kind of just nominate somebody. There's always going to be a conversation, because we need to make sure that the right person is doing that for the new hire coming in. So it's not something that's kind of impressed on people. It's the individuals are asked to kind of put their hand up and volunteer. So that's how that works for us. I'm being asked by Lisa Hughes, have I noticed the impact on leaders and the communication now that it's mostly remote? And are you checking stress levels? And if so, how? So at the moment, we're definitely seeing a lot more like town halls and all hands. The likes of Shantanu and Gloria are connecting regularly with the business as well, just to give us updates so that we know where we are. And then in terms of stress levels, there's a lot going on around that and mindfulness. Just bear with me, something's happened with my webcam.
I know, I've got the same problem.
Just bear with me. I can't see you, but I can see the question. So I don't know whether, Karen, you can help us with the technical challenge that we're currently having. Just bear with us. In terms of checking stress levels, there we go. We are doing that, and we're encouraging people managers to check in with teams, and we're asking individuals to be very open and clear about everything that they're trying to juggle, from those people that are home on their own and finding that stressful, to people juggling families and children being around when trying to do webinars and the like. So yeah, we're definitely encouraged to kind of be more open.
I seem to have been, I've lost myself completely. I don't know what's gone on now. Can you help me, Karen? No.
Okay, so we've got the polls that have just come up. So I don't know whether you can see them. So just bear with us. We're just working to try and get the technicalities sorted out. But if you can answer the question on the screen, if you can see that. So has the current lockdown stopped you from onboarding at all? A yes or a no? That would be really interesting to know.
Can you see me, Amy?
No, I can't see you at all. But I don't know whether that's because the polls are on the screen.
Okay.
I'm assuming that our audience can still see us. Okay, we've got another question here, so I'll go to that. So how are you managing employees who have children and those who do not, to make sure the working environment is fair? So thanks, Lisa, for that. People are just encouraged to manage their day, and we get that you know, having children around and trying to run a home, and especially if you're both working from home as well, you and your partner, it's challenging. So people are encouraged to take time to get things done and maybe restructure what their working day looks like, to encourage it to work better for them as an individual, because obviously everybody's different, and we need to find ways in which work well for you.
Apparently we can't be seen, but we can be heard.
Okay. Okay.
So we've got, you can see the questions as well, can't you, Amy?
I can indeed, and I've got a question here about virtual yoga. So basically we were doing yoga, Pilates and boot camp training sessions on a weekly basis anyway in our Maidenhead office. And what we've done from there is our regular provider has found a way of switching that to a virtual environment. I'm not quite sure what tools they're using, and those sessions are fixed in our diary and they're shared with our employees in the UK, and people can log in as they see fit, and those sessions are also recorded as well, so we can share them out afterwards, and it's working really, really well, and just making sure that people are being fit and well, and that all plays towards their general well-being. Hello, Nikki. I hope you all can see us.
I still can't see anybody. I don't know what's going on.
So I can see you, Nikki. Just bear with us with the technical fun that we're having this morning. So I can see you. I don't know whether you can all see us. I don't know whether anyone has any more questions at all.
Doesn't look as though we have, does it?
Not at the moment, no.
Ah, I'm back. It wasn't such a bad thing. That was about a curveball. How do you manage interruptions? Listen, I think there's any more questions? We've got the virtual yoga. Have you seen that one?
Yes, we've just spoken to that. Lisa's dropped me another question. So, have you noticed any strong capability strengths and gaps since going mostly remote? I think the main thing, or the main strength that I would call out, is the sense of community and people reaching out to one another, and the increased level of communication that's happening. Not just on virtual meetings like this, right, or whether it be an orientation or a business meeting. What we're finding is that we're doing quiz nights, we're having happy hour, we're doing coffee catch-ups. So yes, we've got a lot of stuff happening from a business perspective that's virtually, but we're also driving a lot of social activity as well. Different virtual volunteering opportunities. So there's a lot's happening with that, and I think communication piece is key, which plays nicely to Faye's question that's just come through. So she's mentioned that she knows communication is key, and she agrees with that. But is there any danger in the current client that we communicate too much and people feel micromanaged? Yes, absolutely. And I get where you're coming from, Faye. You know, it can be quite overwhelming. And some days you might have bad days and you might want to be talking to lots of different people through the day on lots of different meetings. I think initially from an Adobe perspective in the beginning, there was a lot of uplift in kind of general all hands and all town hall meetings, just to make sure that our employees felt connected and felt in the know and knew what was happening, to reassure them. And now we've kind of fallen into a more regular cadence of that, so that we're not overwhelmed with too much information coming at us from too many different places. So that's working quite nicely now. Another question from Lisa. Go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, did you just clarify, did you say you send a pulse check out on the 5th day, the 30th and the 90th day?
The 90th. Brand new hires, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That gives us a really good gauge in terms of how they're feeling. Lisa's asked me a quick question. So has Adobe issued a framework regarding confidentiality while working from home? Yes, obviously, when recording meetings or if you're sharing confidentiality, and obviously I sit in the employee experience team, you know, we're definitely working towards GDPR guidelines. You know, in terms of sharing personal information for new hires, we have an internal process that we've developed that aligns with GDPR. So we're safe and we're okay from that perspective. So I hope that answers your question, Lisa.
Any more?
Janet's just jumped on. Just a recommendation. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. With everyone working from home, some teams have organised children's quizzes, especially for those who have young kids at home. Have you tried this? Not yet, but we're looking at it. So that's something that we're looking at. So we have something called a site council and our social impact teams as well. So we have a whole initiative around creating change from home. So within those activities for social impact, volunteering and giving back to the community, creating children's quizzes is part of the activities that we can do, and also doing art classes and things, so sharing creative ways to do things. As a business, we're definitely really driving that creativity piece, and it's a good way to be mindful of your mental health and your well-being.
I think the children piece is really, just picking up on that again, is just in terms of my experience of talking to other clients, is one of the clients I spoke to has said that she was having a meeting with somebody very senior in the organisation, and her daughter ran in and said, "I want to go to the loo, Daddy." And she said, actually, do you know what? It makes things real. You know, we're still real people. I know when we've been our sort of having our team catch ups, quite often we've had Jane, who's heads up our marketing. Her daughter likes to come in and give a wave, and Hannah's got a baby. And you know, babies, you can't say we're going to have a meeting at 1 o'clock and you know the baby's going to be asleep. It just doesn't. That doesn't work like that. We have to adapt.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're all at home, right? We're all at home, and that's where our families are. So we need to be realistic about setting the right expectations, and we are going to get interrupted. You know, I was on an international town hall last week, and we had a very senior person speaking to over 1,000 employees across international, and his son and daughter burst in singing and all happy. You know, and he was really apologetic, but it's going to happen, and we just need to, you know, work with it. It's fine. It's just the current situation that we're in. I
think it's interesting. I think there'd be, just slightly off topic, but you know, organisations that haven't been particularly good at remote working, or you know, not had that culture. We've been forced to have that culture now, and I think there's so much evidence, isn't there, now about the fact that people are more productive. You know, everybody's saying it, you know, in the news and definitely in the business world, that this will change how we work. But you and I both said the other day, we both miss seeing people. You know,
yes.
Actually physically seeing people is you can't replace that, can you?
No, absolutely. And certainly, like we were saying, you know, for me, being in the office, that's where I get my own energy from. I love people. You know, just those casual collisions over a coffee in a corridor, or if you've got an idea and you can just reach out to somebody that's sat a couple of chairs along, you know, it is missed. And I'm sure a lot of people are missing that kind of face-to-face interactivity. We've got a quick question for Vanessa that's just popped up, Nikki, if you don't mind. So can you share your thoughts about parents with kids and how companies will accommodate this fairly once furlong finishes? I think we're working really well to accommodate parents. It's really hard, and I take my hat off to you. You know, I don't have children myself. I find it challenging for me juggling my day job and being at home anyway. So you know, it's a big thing for those that are trying to keep and manage a family as well as jobs at home. I'm not sure what that's going to look like when furlong and everything finishes, and I think you know, that's something that we'd be looking to make plans for, but I don't know what that could potentially look like at the moment, really, to be honest.
I think that that again is we're all in different territory. I mean, I know for us, we Hannah, who is, you know, was key contact for Adobe, we agreed to furlough her last week because she's got 3 children, her husband has to go back to work, and it was just stressful for her. So, you know, the best thing for her to do was just say, right, I'm not working, I'm going to focus on the children. Even though that's not necessarily what she wanted to do, it was actually the best thing for her own mental health as well. You've got to, you know, it is tough for everybody. I think everybody's got their own challenge anyway, haven't they, in terms of you know, their experiences of the situation.
And I think it's finding that balance. So, you know, there needs to be an element of looking after yourself. You know, if you're not looking after yourself and giving your body and your brain what it needs to be well, then you're not going to be able to do your job well. So it's important that you look after yourself.
Okay, I'm struggling to see the questions. So are there any more questions, Amy?
So we've just had a note from Nikki to say that we think that that's all the questions. I don't know whether anybody else has anything else they want to ask.
No? Well, listen, thank you so much. I hope, I mean, it's really, everybody can tell Amy's so passionate about Adobe and what they're doing. And I think, you know, to do a job that you are so passionate about, you're very, very fortunate. I've certainly really enjoyed this journey of learning about virtual onboarding. We are going to be sending out a document in the next week or so with sort of some general findings about what we've learned on this journey. Just to make you aware as well, we've been doing quite a lot of free seminar training online, and we've got a competency-based interview, virtual competency-based interviewing training tomorrow morning with Jane. That's obviously aimed at managers who are interviewing but haven't necessarily done it virtually before. We've also going to have another one on focus management in lockdown. So what's different? So if any of those are of interest to you, do let us know. We will send you a follow-up email and survey. I'd really appreciate it if you would give us your feedback. I think for Amy and I, this is probably the first time either of us have done anything like this. So
absolutely,
be a little bit kind to us. But I really hope you've all enjoyed it, and thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, Amy. Thank you very much, Amy.
It's been my pleasure. It's been my pleasure. Yeah, it's lovely.
Okay,
thank you for your time, everybody.
Okay. Bye.
Take care. Thanks. Bye bye.